Hello everybody, and welcome back to my War Thunder Tips and Tricks series. Today we're going to be looking at how to engage tanks from the front. And what we're really going to be doing is doing a very basic but systematic way to engage tanks. I'm trying to do this in a way that is simple for everyone to understand, and yet is almost applicable in almost every single situation. It's The idea is that it's not overly simplified, but it's something that on the fly you can remember. You don't have to sit there and have it like written down on a piece of paper next to you. Let's basically just jump right into it. This is a multi-level system, I guess, and that sounds scary at first, but I'll be honest, the first level is literally just your first shot, the time in between shots, or your reload period, and your follow-up shots. And basically your time in between and your follow-up shots are repeated until you kill the tank. So you have 3 steps and 2 of them repeat indefinitely. So it's kind of really repetitive with what you do. So it's going to be pretty simple. So let's start out with your initial shot. And with your initial shot, there are 2 questions you need to ask yourself before you do anything. And that are, do I really want to engage? And does the thing I'm trying to engage know I am there? We'll talk about that in a little bit. But if the answer to, once you have those answers, you can then move on to your next question, which is, where is a weak spot or a sweet spot or a point where I need to shoot? Where is one of those? And your next step is then going to be ranging in, shooting that spot. And that's your first shot. I mean, with those 4 steps, I guess, you've completed your first shot, and you will, with a reasonable amount of time, you will have killed the tank. The next part is going to be your reload period. In your reload period, there's some things that you need to do, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then your follow-up shots. Your follow-up shots are literally going to follow the exact same formula as your initial shot, except you're going to ignore the first part, which is, do I want to engage? Because you only really ask yourself that during your initial shot and during your reload period. You don't need to do it for your follow-up shot. So let's jump right into it. How to really break down your initial shot into a tank. And starting with, do I actually want to engage? 95% of the time, the answer is going to be yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, I want to engage. You want to get kills, it gets you a lot of experience and whatnot, so yes, you want to engage. There are times, though, you don't want to engage. For instance, you're in a very under-tiered tank, and you really, really, really are struggling against this tank, especially tanks from the front. So, you just can't penetrate it. It's going to be very difficult for you to hit. The gun isn't accurate, and you're at a long range. There are a lot of reasons you might not want to engage. But most of the time, you do want to engage. Second question is it looking at me or does it know where I am? About 90% of the time when you're engaging a tank from the front, which is what this video is about, yes, the answer is yes. They will either know where you are or they will be looking at you. It's pretty easy to tell if they're turning their turret towards you, if they're firing at you, if they're doing anything that's aimed at you, then they probably know where you are. But if they're looking the other direction, if they've got something else going on, they're focused on that, then no. They might not know that you're there. They might not be focused on you. And basically the answer to that question is going to either speed up or allow you to take your time with the next few parts of the engagement. If it is looking at you and it knows you're there, you need to you need to be snappy about it. You need to kind of speed up what you're doing. If they don't, and you can kind of take more time, and you can make sure it hits and does the right thing on the first shot, instead of kind of rushing it and possibly messing up. So then your next part is finding a weak spot, and this is where I find the most people get the wrong impression on weak spots. Weak spot doesn't mean that you just need to penetrate a tank. That's a very overly simplistic way of looking at things. If the only place to penetrate a tank is the best spot, a weak spot, first and foremost, does need to penetrate a tank. I mean, there's no point shooting at ammo racks or your commander or your loader or whatever if you can't penetrate that part of a tank. You're just wasting shells, you're wasting your time. you might as well re-engage something else. So when looking for weak spots, you want to find spots that you can penetrate. But after you've done that, I mean, that's a pretty simple thing you can do in the garage. I've showed tools with that in previous tutorials with the armor viewer. You need to find vitals. Again, this can be found in the garage with the armor viewer and the module viewer. And vitals are ammo racks, crew members, and fuel cells, transmissions, basically anything inside of the tank. Vitals, especially things like ammo racks, the driver, and gunner, those three things are going to be what you really, really, really want to aim for with your shot, especially the gunner and driver on your first shot from the front. Very rarely are ammo racks easily accessible from the front. There are exceptions, obviously, but most tanks have them pretty well hidden from the front, and you have to get to the side to hit ammo racks. So you're going to want to hit either the driver or the gunner. And depending on the tank, usually the gunner is the better choice, because then you take their gun out of the game for 10 seconds or so. But sometimes a tank will kill you more with quickness, and it might not be able to penetrate you very well from the front. You want to take out its driver. It just depends. Usually gunner, sometimes driver, sometimes if the ammo rack is accessible, that. Basically what you're looking for in a weak spot is a place that you can penetrate. It has vitals that you can blow apart and take out in your first shot, because the first shot is going to be your shock shot. If you hit first and you take stuff out in the first shot, you're going to more likely than not win the engagement. It's very important that you hit stuff and do a lot of damage with your first shot. Of course, there is always a point where you can't penetrate a tank. Usually, what this means is that you did the first step wrong, and you chose that you wanted to engage when you really shouldn't have. However, this does happen, and the best alternative to that is actually just shooting out the tracks and running away. Tracks are a viable option if you're trying to slow down something like a Hellcat or something that's quick, a Comet. Shooting tracks out will slow them down to a stop for a considerable amount of time. It's a very viable tactic. And after you find your weak spot or your tracks or whatever, the last step is ranging and shooting. We'll talk about ranging in a different episode and how I do that in realistic and sim battles. And arcade battles is done for you. It's not really a big deal. But step 3 is really the one that people seem to not get very well. That's why I spent a lot of time talking about it. So after we've done those 4 steps and we've shot the tank, we've taken out its gunner, we've taken out whatever, we might have bounced. Whatever happened, you now have to reload. The reload period is the second most important part of the engagement. During this time, there's a lot of stuff you need to do. Most notably is going to be re-range and re-aim. If you miss the tank completely, if you just barely nick the weak spot, you're going to need to re-aim, and you're going to have to find somewhere else to aim. If you blew out the driver, you might now have to take out the gunner. If you took out the gunner, you might now have to take out an ammo rack. You're going to want to reload. You're going to want to re-range and re-aim. The next thing you're going to want to do is ask yourself again, does he know where I am? Does he now, have I lost the element of surprise? Sometimes in certain vehicles, losing the element of surprise means you need to end the engagement because you have 0 armor. Stuff like the Hellcat, the Comet, other things are very lightly armored. These tanks rely on the element of surprise, and when you don't have that, you might want to find something else to re-engage. The other thing you want to do is hide or angle your armor or get ready to peekaboo during this time. Depending on the tank you're in, you may have to take a follow-up shot. You may have to run away. You may have to do whatever. This is the time to do it because you can't fire at things. And ideally, you want to be prepared to fire as soon as you're done reloading. This means that you have re-ranged, re-aimed, moved your tank, asked yourself, does it know where I am, have lost the element of surprise, in the time it takes you to reload the gun. Now, this isn't a whole lot of time to do that. But as you get through and you get better and you get faster, you'll do this very quickly. And after you've waited and reloaded, then you do the exact same thing you did before. You ask yourself, is it looking where I am? Does it know where I am? I need to now range in a weak spot and range in and shoot. And you continue doing that, hitting different weak spots, until you take out the tank. This is all great in speech. I can write up these rules on your screen, and I can talk about this all the time, but you need to see this in action, I think. So let's look at a couple engagements of mine, two of which I did really well, and two of which one of which really I probably won't be able to find two. One of which I didn't do so well. So let's look into those. These first two kills you have already seen before in this video. So let's look at the first one and just start with the 3 steps. Obviously we do want to engage because it's a video of a kill. So the answer is yes. And if we look, the tiger over here isn't looking at us. So we know that it doesn't know where we are, and we can kind of take our time with these next couple shots. So the weak spot I'm looking for is, because I'm in the Churchill Black Prince, I can pretty much shoot anywhere in the turret except for the turret front on this tiger. Turret front being kind of trolly and might not penetrate. It probably will, but it might not. So what I'm going to do is, I know that the tiger has this really unique ability to have its driver and gunner lined up. So I'm going to shoot the driver and also hit the gunner, as you can see. This is a really, really nice weak spot because I knock out both the gunner and the driver, whereas if I had just shot for the gunner or maybe just the driver somehow, I might not get both. But this hitting both of them is an awesome weak point to hit. So I range in and shoot, obviously, and with my first shot, I take out the enemy's driver and gunner. This leaves him unable to fend off my second shot, which, as during my reload time, I noticed that my kill cam has shown me I took out the driver and gunner, which means I can kind of take my time with this next shot. So I move up, aim in, and take out the rest of his crew. While not main vital spots, the way, as we talked about in the last how do I actually kill tanks video, crew deaths is one way to kill a tank, and that's how I killed this particular tiger. So one last time, let's look at this all together, and it really go through the steps in your head as this plays. For this next kill, we're in the Centurion Mark 10, and we're kind of surprised by this King Tiger 105. And I do make an early mistake of part 2 of our checklist, and that is it looking at me and doesn't know where I am? Of course we do want to engage, but I kind of misjudge how quickly he was going to fire. And luckily, he fires too fast. Another pretty common issue with people is that they just fire too fast. You need to kind of have a little bit of a rhythm. And after he fired, I was able to slow down and really take a good place shot. So I know that I can penetrate the King Tiger really, really easily in the right turret cheek. I can also do it in the left cheek, but the right cheek has this unique thing of having the gunner behind it. And fortunately, when I aim for the gunner, this Tiger 105 happens to have ammo in the back of his turret. And by shooting out his gunner, I was also able to hit the ammo behind him, instantly killing him. This is one of the main weaknesses of the Tiger 105, is that when you get penetrating the turret, especially with an APDS shell like this, it pretty commonly takes out the ammo back there. So looking through this one last time, we see, yeah, I want to engage. It's definitely looking at me. I mean, it fires. And we know the weak spot, the right turret cheek. Shoot it right in the cheek and boom, blows up. And for this last battle, we have some shots that I purposely did quick and was trying not to aim, and somehow got lucky and nuked this IS-2. So if we go through the rundown on this first shot on this IS-3, you'll notice that I kind of just don't aim very well. I just kind of shoot at the tank. I'm not really aiming for a weak spot. There's really no point to aim, and IS-2 is the same way. So when we break this down, the first question is, do you want to engage? Well, obviously, I mean, that's what this video is about. Um, and second question is, are they looking at me? Well, in the case of the IS-3, the answer is no. The turret isn't turning towards me. It's running away. No. The answer is no. As far as the IS-2, the only reason I knew it was there is because it shot at me. So obviously, it's looking at me. So the next question is going to be is to find a weak spot. Well, I don't really do that in either one of these shots. I just kind of shoot at the tank. And that's one of the things that people I think need to get out of the habit of is just kind of aiming at the tank, and if you hit it, good. If you hit a weak spot, even better. You need to really focus on aiming at weak spots, and as you can see here, yeah, every once in a while you'll accidentally ricochet and nuke a tank, but most of the time you'll have what happens to the IS-3 versus not really very often we get what happens at IS-2. So the third step with finding weak spots is really, really important. And luckily on both those shots, I ranged in, perfectly. I mean, I guessed on both of them, completely off the top of my head. So it's not like these aren't arcade or anything. So got lucky. I mean, honestly, the only reason the IS-2 is dead is because I got lucky. It won't happen very often. And if you look at my first two kills, I aim in, I shoot at the weak spot, and granted they're closer, but I could do that at the exact same distances because I know where the weak spots are. If I was aiming for the weak spots, I could have I don't know about the IS-3 because I had AP ammo loaded, but IS-2 I certainly could have killed in a much more realistic fashion as opposed to trying to bounce it off the front of the turret into the hull. I mean, it was, trying to do that 10 out of 10 times can be really difficult, whereas if you just shoot the side of the hull where it's weak, you'll get the tank, 9.5 out of 10 times, 99 out of 100 times, you'll probably kill that tank. So just remember that step 3 is really big. And I hope that this kind of gives you a little bit of what not to do and as opposed to what to do, because the best way to learn is to not only see what to do, but also not what not to do. And I think the two biggest things people have problems with is choosing when to engage and aiming at weak spots. You can hit a tank from 1,000 meters away with pretty much any gun in game, and you can do it. It might take a shot or two, but you can do it. Now hitting a weak spot from 1,000 meters, now that's something that takes a little bit of skill, and it's something you need to learn. Weak spots are big in killing tanks, especially from the front. Frontal engagements are all about how well do you know tank anatomy and how well do you know the enemy's tank. In the next couple of videos, I'll talk about side and rear shots and how to approach those, and it'll be a lot less about weak spots and a lot more of knowing where certain modules in the tank are, because side shots are the bread and butter, and rear shots are really more about killing crew and getting that tank disabled so that the enemies can die, and your allies can possibly get that kill for you, because we'll talk about that later. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned. I got a couple more videos coming your way.